Chapter 14. We're like 51% done with the book, by the way. The Heart of Gold fled on silently through the night of space, now on conventional photon drive. Its crew of 4 were ill at ease, knowing that they had been brought together not of their own volition or by simple coincidence, but by some curious perversion of physics, as if relationships between people were susceptible to the same laws that govern the relationships between atoms and molecules. That was a great paragraph. Great paragraph. As the ship's artificial night closed in, they were each grateful to retire to separate cabins and try to rationalize their thoughts. Trillian couldn't sleep. She sat on a couch and stared at a small cage which contained her last and only links with Earth. 2 white mice that she had instead... hold on. 2 white mice which she had instead Zaphod let her bring. She had expected never to see the planet again, but she was disturbed by her negative reaction to the news of the planet's destruction. It seemed remote and unreal, and she could find no thoughts to think about it. She watched the mice scurrying around the cage and running furiously in their little plastic treadmill wheels till they occupied her whole attention. Suddenly she shook herself and went back on to the bridge to watch over the tiny flashing lights and figures that charted the ship's progress through the void. She wished she knew what it was she was trying not to think about. Zaphod couldn't sleep. He also wished he knew what it was that he wouldn't let himself think about. For as long as he could remember, he'd suffered from a vague nagging feeling of being not at all there. Most of the time, he was able to put his thought aside and not worry about it, but it had been reawakened by the sudden, inexplicable arrival of Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent. Somehow, it seemed to confirm to a pattern that he couldn't see. Ford couldn't sleep. He was too excited about being back on the road again. 15 years of virtual imprisonment were over, just as he was finally beginning to give up hope. Knocking about with Zaphod for a bit promised to be a lot of fun, though there seemed to be something faintly odd about his semi-cousin that he couldn't put his finger on. The fact that he had become president of the galaxy was frankly astonishing, as was the manner of his leaving the post. Was there a reason behind it? There would be no point in asking Zaphod. He never appeared to have a reason for anything he did at all. He turned unfathomability into an art form. He attacked everything in life with a mixture of extraordinary genius and naive incompetence, and it was often difficult to tell which was which. Arthur slept. He was terribly tired. There was a tap at Zaphod's door. It slid open. Zaphod? Yeah. Trillian stood outlined in an oval of light. I think we just found what you came to look for. Hey, yeah? Ford gave up the attempt to sleep in the corner of his cabin. In the corner of his cabin was a small computer screen and keyboard. He sat at it for a while. Excuse me, guys. My cat is bothering my reading. Hold on. What a dumbass. This cat. Alright. He sat at it for a while and tried to compose a new entry for the guide on the subject of Vogons, but couldn't think of anything vitriolic enough so he gave that up too, wrapped the robe around himself, and went for a walk to the bridge. As he entered, he was surprised to see 2 figures hunched excitedly over the instruments. See? The ship's about to move into orbit, Trillian was saying. There's a planet out there. It's at the exact coordinates you predicted. Zaphod heard a noise and looked up. Ford, he hissed. Hey, come and take a look at this. Ford went and had a look at it. It was a series of figures flickering over a screen. You recognize those galactic coordinates, said Zaphod. No, I'll give you a clue. Computer! Hi, gang, enthused the computer. This is getting real sociable, isn't it? Shut up, said Zaphod, and show and show up the screens. Light on the bridge sank. Pinpoints of light played across the consoles and reflected in 4 pairs of eyes that stared up at the external monitor screens. There was absolutely nothing on them. "Recognize that?" whispered Zaphod. Ford frowned. No," he said. "What do you see?" "Nothing." "Recognize it?" "What are you talking about?" "We're in the Horsehead Nebula, one whole vast dark cloud." "And I was meant to recognize that from a blank screen?" "Inside a dark nebula is the only place in the galaxy you'd ever see a dark screen." "Very good." Zaphod laughed. He was clearly very excited about something, almost childishly slow. "Hey, this is really terrific. This is just far too much." "What's so great about being stuck in a dust cloud?" said Ford. "What would you reckon to find here?" urged Zaphod. "Nothing. No stars, no planets?" "No." "Computer!" shouted Zaphod. "Rotate angle of vision through 180 degrees and don't talk about it." LOL. For a moment it seemed that nothing was happening. Then a brightness glowed at the edge of the huge screen. A red star, the size of a small plate, crept across it, followed quickly by another one. A binary system. There's a vast crescent sliced into the corner of the picture. A red glare shading away into deep black, the night side of the planet. "I found it!" cried Zaphod, thumping the console. "I found it!" Ford stared at it in astonishment. "What is it?" he said. "That," said Zaphod, "is the most improbable planet that ever existed." Oh, no. This is the dolphin chapter, isn't it? Chapter 15. Excerpt. Oh, no. It's the next chapter. That's fine. Excerpt from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Page 634,784. Section 5A. Entry. Magarathea. That sounds better. Magarathea. Let me get a little bit of ya. I just want some mayo on my sandwich. Sorry. Far back in the midst of ancient time, in the great and glorious days of the former galactic empire, life was wild, rich, and largely tax-free. Mighty starships plied their way between exotic suns, seeking adventure and reward among the furthest reaches of galactic space. In those days, spirits were brave. The stakes were high. Men were real men. Women were real women. And small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri were real small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri. And all dared to brave unknown terrors, to do mighty deeds, to boldly split infinities that no man had ever split before. And thus was the empire forged. Many men, of course, became extremely rich, but this was perfectly natural and nothing to be ashamed of because no one was really poor, at least no one worth speaking of. And for all the richest and most successful merchants, life inevitably became rather dull and niggly, and they began to imagine that this was, therefore, the fault of the worlds they settled on. None of them was entirely satisfactory. Either the climate wasn't quite right in the latter part of the afternoon, or the day was half an hour too long, or the sea was exactly the wrong shade of pink. And thus were created the conditions for a staggering new form of specialized industry, custom-made luxury planet building. The home of this industry was the planet Magarathea, where hyperspatial engineers sucked matter through white holes in space to form it into dream planets, gold planets, platinum planets, soft rubber planets with lots of earthquakes, all lovingly made to meet the exacting standards that the galaxy's richest men naturally came to expect. Ooh, those are crazy planets. But so successful was the venture that Magarathea itself soon became the richest planet of all time, and the rest of the galaxy was reduced to abject poverty. And so the system broke down, the empire collapsed, and a long sullen silence settled over 1 billion hungry worlds, disturbed only by the pen scratchings of scholars as they labored into the night over smug little treatises on the value of a planned political economy. Magarathea itself disappeared, and its memory soon passed into the obscurity of legend. In these enlightened days, of course, no one believes a word of it. White holes push shit out. They don't suck anything in. Well, I guess we've never found a white hole in real life, so I could be wrong. Chapter 16. Arthur awoke to the sound of argument and went to the bridge. Ford was waving his arms about. "You're crazy, Zaphod," he was saying. "Magarathea is a myth, a fairy story. It's what parents tell their kids about at night if they want to grow up to become economists. And what's what we are already currently in orbit about?" insisted Zaphod. "Look, I can't help you. I can't help you what you may personally be in orbit around." "Okay," said Ford, "but this ship..." "Computer!" shouted Zaphod. "Oh no. Hi there. This is Eddie, your shipboard computer, and I'm feeling just great, guys. And I know I'm just going to get a bundle of kicks out of any program you care to run through me." Arthur looked inquiringly at Trillian. She motioned him to come on in, but keep quiet. "Computer," said Zaphod, "tell us what our present trajectory is." "A real pleasure, feller," it burbled. "We are currently in orbit at an altitude of 300 miles around the legendary planet of Magarathea." "Proving nothing," said Ford. "I wouldn't trust that computer to speak my weight." "I can do that for you, for sure," enthused the computer, punching out more ticket tape. "I can even work out your personality problems to 10 decimal places if it will help." Trillian interrupted. "Zaphod," she said, "any minute now we will be swinging around to the daylight side of this planet," adding, "whatever it turns out to be." "Hey, what do you mean by that? The planet's where I predicted it would be, isn't it?" "Yes, I know there's a planet there. I'm not arguing with anyone. It's just that I wouldn't know Magarathea from any other lump of cold rock. Dawn's coming up, if you want it." Okay, muttered Zaphod. "Let's at least give our eyes a good time. Computer!" "Hi there. What can I... Just shut up and give us a view of the planet again." A dark, featureless mass was once more filled the screens, the planet rolling away beneath them. They watched for a moment in silence, but Zaphod was fidgety with excitement. "We are now traversing the night side," he said in a hushed voice. The planet rolled on. "The surface of the planet is now 300 miles beneath us," he continued. He was trying to restore a sense of occasion to what he felt should have been a great moment. "Magarathea." He was piqued by Ford's skeptical reaction. "Magarathea." "In a few seconds," he continued, "we should see." There! The moment carried itself. Even the most seasoned star tramp can't help but shiver at the spectacular drama of a sunrise seen from space. But a binary sunrise is one of the marvels of the galaxy. Out of the utter blackness stabbed a sudden point of blinding light. It crept up by slight degrees and spread sideways in a thin crescent blade. Hold on. Out of the utter blackness stabbed a sudden point of blinding light. It crept up space, and within seconds 2 suns were visible. Furnaces of light, searing the black edge of the horizon with white fire. Fierce shafts of color streaked through the thin atmosphere beneath them. "The fires of dawn," breathed Zaphod. "The twin sons of Solianus and Ram." "Or whatever," said Ford quietly. "Solianus and Ram," insisted Zaphod. The suns blazed into the pitch of space, and the low ghostly music floated through the bridge. Marvin was humming ironically because he hated humans so much. As Ford gazed at the spectacle of light before them, excitement burned inside him, but only the excitement of seeing a strange new planet. It was enough for him to see it as it was. It faintly irritated him that Zaphod had to impose some ludicrous fantasy onto the scene to make it work for him. All this Magarathea nonsense seemed juvenile. Isn't it enough to see that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too? All this Magarathea business seemed totally incomprehensible to Arthur. He edged up to Trillian and asked her what was going on. "I only know what Zaphod has told me," she whispered. "Apparently Magarathea is some kind of legend from way back when no one seriously believes in it. Bit like Atlantis on Earth, except that the legends say that Magaratheans used to manufacture planets. Arthur blinked at the screens and felt he was missing something important. Suddenly, he realized what it was. "Is there any tea on this spaceship?" he asked. Most of the planet was unfolded beneath him as the heart of gold streaked along his orbital path. The suns now stood high in the black sky. The pyrotechnics of dawn were over, and the surface of the planet appeared bleak and forbidding in the common light of day, gray, dusty, and only dimly contoured. It looked dead and cold as a crypt. From time to time, promising features would appear on the distant horizon. Ravines, maybe mountains, maybe even cities. But as they approached, the lines would soften and blur into anonymity, and nothing would transpire. The planet's surface was blurred by time, by the slow movement of the thin, stagnant air that had crept across it for century upon century. Clearly, it was very old, very. A moment of doubt came to Ford as he watched the gray landscape move beneath him. The immensity of time worried him. He could feel it as a presence. He cleared his throat. "Well, even supposing it is, said Zaphod. "Which it isn't," continued Ford. "What do you want with it anyway? There's nothing there." "Not on the surface," said Zaphod. "All right, just supposing there's something. I take it you're not here for the sheer industrial archaeology of it all. What are you here after?" One of Zaphod's heads looked away. The other one looked round to see what the first was looking at, but it wasn't looking at anything very much. "Well," said Zaphod airily, "it's partly the curiosity, partly a sense of adventure, but mostly I think it's the fame and the money." Ford glanced at him sharply. He got a very strong impression that Zaphod hadn't the faintest idea why he was there at all. "You know, I don't like the look of that planet at all," said Trillian, shivering. Take no notice," said Zaphod. "With half the wealth of the former galactic empire stored on it somewhere, it can afford to look frumpy." "Bullshit," thought Ford. Even supposing this was the home of some ancient civilization, now gone to dust, even supposing a number of exceedingly unlikely things, there was no way that vast treasures of wealth were going to be stored there in any form that would still be meaning now. He shrugged. "I think it's just a dead planet," he said. "The suspense is killing me," said Arthur testily. "Stress and nervous tension are now serious social problems in all parts of the galaxy, and it is in order that this situation should not be in any way exacerbated by that the following facts will now be revealed in advance. The planet in question is in fact the legendary Magarathea, the deadly missile attacks shortly to be launched by an ancient automatic defense system will result merely in the breakage of 3 coffee cups and a mouse cage, the bruising of somebody's upper arm, and the untimely creation and sudden demise of a howl of petunias, and an innocent sperm whale. In order that some of mystery should still be preserved, no revelation will yet be made concerning whose upper arm sustains the bruise. This fact may safely be made the subject of suspense, since it is of no significance whatsoever." I'm thinking if I should continue. I'm just reading as much as I want to finish this. I'm excited to post this because it's my first video. I believe I will get no traction. I'm looking for one. I'm only looking for one view. I get that view, I make another one. What's the next one? The Hobbit. I am doing the Hobbit read-through reaction because I never read it and I've been so excited. Lord of the Rings is my favorite. It's not my favorite movie. Lord of the Rings is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. My favorite movie of all time is Goodfellas, and I need to read that book too. I wonder if I can read Blood Meridian on YouTube. I don't even know if I'm allowed to read this on YouTube. We about to find out, boys. Fuck it, let's go. Chapter 17, baby. After a fairly shaky start of the day, Arthur's mind was beginning to reassemble itself from the shell-shocked fragments the previous day had left him with. He had found a nutrimatic machine which had provided him with a plastic cup filled with a liquid that was almost but not quite entirely unlike tea. The way it functioned was very interesting. When the drink button was pressed, it made an instant but highly detailed examination of the subject's taste buds, a spectroscopic analysis of the subject's metabolism, and then sent tiny experimental signals down the neural pathways to the taste centers of the subject's brain to see what was likely to go down well. However, no one knew quite why it did this, because it invariably delivered a cupful of liquid that was almost but not quite entirely unlike tea. The Nutrimatic was designed and manufactured by the Ceres Cybernetics Corporation, whose complaints department now covers all the major land masses of the first 3 planets in the Ceres Tau star system. Arthur drank the liquid and found it reviving. Ooh. He glanced up at the screens again and watched a few more 100 miles of barren grayness slide past. It suddenly occurred to him to ask a question that had been bothering him. "Is it safe?" he said. "Magarathea's been dead for 5 million years, said Zaphod. "Of course it's safe." "Oh, so it is dead. Even the ghosts will have settled down and raised families by now." At which point a strange and inexplicable sound thrilled suddenly through the bridge, a noise as of a distant fanfare, a wholly reedy, insubstantial sound. It preceded a voice that was equally hollow, reedy, and insubstantial. The voice said, "Greetings to you." Someone from the dead planet was talking to them. "Computers!" shouted Zaphod. "Hi there. What the photon is it?" "Oh, just some 5 million-year-old tape that's being broadcast at us." "A what? A recording?" "Shush," said Ford. "It's carrying on." The voice was old, courteous, almost charming, but was underscored with quite unmistakable menace. "This is a recorded announcement," it said. "As I'm afraid we're all out at the moment, the Commercial Council of Magarathea thanks you for your esteemed visit." A visit from ancient Magarathea," shouted Zaphod. Okay, said Ford. "But regrets," continued the voice, "that the entire planet is temporarily closed for business. Thank you. If you would care to leave your name and the address of a planet where you can be contacted, kindly speak when you hear the tone." A short buzz followed, then silence. "They want to get rid of us," said Trillian nervously. "What do we do?" "It's just a recording," said Zaphod. "We keep going. Got that, computer?" "I got it," said the computer, and gave the ship an extra kick of speed. They waited. After a second or so, the fanfare once again came on, and then the voice. "We would like to assure you that as soon as our business is resumed, announcements that will be made in all fashionable magazines and color supplements, when our clients will once again be able to select from all that's best in contemporary geography." The menace in the voice took on a sharper edge. "Meanwhile, we thank our clients for their kind interest and would ask them to leave now." Arthur looked round the nervous faces of his companions. "Well, I suppose we'd better get going then, hadn't we?" he suggested. "Shh," said Zaphod. "There's absolutely nothing to be worried about." "Then why is everyone so tense?" "They're just interested," shouted Zaphod. "Computer, start a descent into the atmosphere and prepare for landing." This time, the fanfare was quite perfunctory. The voice now distinctly cold. "It is most gratifying," it said, "that your enthusiasm for our planet continues unabated. And so we would like to assure you that the guided missiles currently converging with your ship are part of a special service we extend to all our most enthusiastic clients, and the fully armed nuclear warheads are, of course, merely a courtesy detail. We look forward to your custom in future lives. Thank you." The voice snapped off. "Oh," said Trillian. Said Arthur. "Well," said Ford. "Look," said Zaphod. Will you get it into your heads? That's just a recorded message. It's millions of years old. It doesn't apply to us. Get it?" "What?" said Trillian quietly. "About the missiles?" "Missiles? Don't make me laugh." Ford tapped Zaphod on the shoulder and pointed on the rear screen. Clear in the distance behind them, 2 silver darts were climbing through the atmosphere toward the ship. A quick change of magnification brought them into close focus. 2 massively real rockets thundering through the sky. The suddenness of it was shocking. I think they're going to have a very good try at applying it to us, said Ford. Zaphod stared at them in astonishment. Hey, this is terrific, he said. Someone down there is trying to kill us. Terrific, said Arthur. But don't you see what this means? Yes, we're going to die. Yes, but apart from that, it means we must be on to something. How soon can we get off it? Second by second, the image of the missiles on the screen grew larger. They had swung round now onto a direct homing course, so that all that could be seen of them now was the warheads head on. As a matter of interest, said Trillian, what are we going to do? Just keep cool, said Zaphod. Is that all? Shouted Arthur. No, we're also going to take evasive action, said Zaphod with a sudden access of panic. Computer, what evasive action can we take? None, I'm afraid, guys, said the computer. Or something, said Zaphod. He said, there seems to be something jamming in my guiding systems, explained the computer brightly. Impact minus 45 seconds. Please call me Eddie if it will help you to relax. What the hell? Zaphod tried to run in several equally decisive directions simultaneously. Right, he said. We've got to get manual control of the ship. Can you fly her? Asked Ford pleasantly. No. Can you? No. Trillian, can you? No. Fine, said Zaphod, relaxing. We'll do it together. I can't either, said Arthur, who felt it was time he began to assert himself. I'd guess that, said Zaphod. Okay, computer, I want full manual control now. You got it, said the computer. Several large desk panels slid open and banks of control consoles sprang out of them, showering the crew with bits of expanded polystyrene packaging and balls of rolled up cellophane. These controls had never been used before. Zaphod stared at them wildly. Okay, Ford, he said. Full retro thrust and 10 degrees starboard. Or something. Good luck, guys, chirped the computer. Impact minus 30 seconds. Ford leaped to the controls. Only a few of them made any immediate sense to him. So he pulled those. The ship shook and screamed as its guidance rockets jets tried to push it every which way simultaneously. He released half of them, and the ship spun around in a tight arc and headed back the way it had come, straight toward the oncoming missiles. Air cushions ballooned out of the walls in an instant as everyone was thrown against them. For a few seconds, the initial inertial forces held them flattened and squirming for breath, unable to move. Zaphod struggled and pushed in manic desperation and finally managed a savage kick at a smaller lever that formed part of the guidance system. The lever snapped off. The ship twisted sharply and rocketed upward. The crew was hurled violently back across the cabin. Ford's copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy smashed into another section of the control console, with the combined result that the guide started to explain to anyone who cared to listen about the best ways of smuggling Antarian parakeet glands out of Antares. An Antarian parakeet gland stuck on a small stick is a revolting but much sought after cocktail delicacy, and very large sums of money are often paid for them by very, very rich idiots who want to impress other very rich idiots. And the ship suddenly dropped out of the sky like a stone. Damn. It was, of course, more or less at this moment that one of the crew sustained a nasty bruise to the upper arm. This should be emphasized because, as has already been revealed, they escape otherwise completely unharmed, and the deadly nuclear missiles do not eventually hit the ship. The safety of the crew is absolutely assured. Impact minus 20 seconds, guys, said the computer. Then, turn the bloody engines back on, bawled Zaphod. Oh, sure thing, guys, said the computer. With a subtle roar, the engines cut back in. The ship smoothly flattened out of its dive and headed back toward the missiles again. The computer started to sing. When you walk through the storm, whined nasally, hold your head up high. Zaphod screamed at it to shut up, but his voice was lost in the din of what they quite naturally assumed was approaching destruction. And don't be afraid of the dark, Eddie wailed. The ship in flattening out had in fact flattened out upside down and lying on the ceiling as they were. It was now totally impossible for any of the crew to reach the guidance systems. At the end of the storm, crowed Eddie. The two missiles loomed massively on the screens as they thundered toward the ship. It is a golden sky, but by an extraordinary lucky chance, they had not yet fully corrected their flight path to that of the erratically weaving ship, and they passed right under it. And the sweet silver song of the lark, revised impact time 15 seconds, fellas. Walk on through the wind. The missiles banked round in a screeching arc and plunged back in pursuit. This is it, said Arthur, watching them. We are now quite definitely going to die, aren't we? I wish you stopped saying that, shouted out Ford. Well, we are, aren't we? Yes. Walk on through the rain, sang Eddie. A thought struck Arthur. He struggled to his feet. Why doesn't anyone turn on the improbability drive thing? He said. Finally, someone said it. We could probably reach that. What are you, crazy, says Zaphod. Without proper programming, anything could happen. Does that matter at this stage, shouted Arthur. Through your dreams be tossed and blown, sang Eddie. Arthur scrambled up to one of the excitingly chunky pieces of molded contouring where the curve on the wall met the ceiling. Come on, Arthur. Walk on, with hope in your heart. Does anyone know why Arthur can't turn on the improbability drive? Shouted Trillian. And you'll never walk alone. Impact minus 5 seconds. It's been great knowing you guys. God bless. You'll never walk alone. I said, yelled Trillian. Does anyone know? The next thing that happened was a mind-mangling explosion of noise and light. No! They died! Chapter 18. Before we start, let me just go back to 17 and see